You're listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series.
Welcome to the studio, welcome to the microphone, Supreme Court Judge David Ashton Lewis.
As always, Colin, it's a pleasure to be here and thank you.
Down to business, what is love?
Down to business?
What is love?
What is true love?
That's the topic of the day, and we've been talking about it for a while, and we've gone round and round in circles. David is about to tell us what A plus B equals, and hopefully that is true love.
Well, I'm not, because you can't define it. You only know it when you have it, or you know it when you feel it. True love is a lovely term, and it comes in many different forms. It comes in a long marriage over 70-odd years till death separates them. Most people want that, but sadly it doesn't happen for a lot. Divorce, separation, or whatever. True love is not defined by length. One of the best definitions, of course, is the Christian definition. Greater love hath no man than he lay down his life for another man, or man being mankind. Now, people immediately equate that with wartime. But laying down your life is not necessarily being shot and killed as you're carrying someone back to safety. Laying down your life is laying down your heart, laying down whatever. So, true love is a very difficult thing to define, but it's very easy if you know you've got it. And so true love can be the love of a precious animal that you'll drive hundreds of miles to get that animal to a proper vet.
A child, a spouse.
Yes,
a friend, all of those things.
Well, I've lost a child, and believe you me, burying your own child, boy, you learn what the love you had in your heart for that little child. So, and I've got friends that I can say, and it's not passion love, but friends that I can say, I really love that woman or that man, and then I define it, I'd do anything for them. I'd go an extra 100 miles to help them. And so you ask yourself, why would I do that? Why would I do that? So love gets easily thrown around. I think of you and your love for your child. I mean, it's observable. You would be the first to say, I'd lay down my life for that child.
Sure.
So it's hard to give a one-size-fits-all.
Are there individual components to it? Can we break it down to its individual requirements, i.e. respect?
Yes, I think you're right with that. And the narrative, the calling of the heart and of the mind, whether a man loving another man has nothing to do with passion or sexual love. It has to do with, look, my heart and my mind are in that person.
Sure.
And so, and obviously the one that we mainly concentrate on is a man and a woman, a husband and a wife.
So can we compartmentalise this, the true love? Can we say that it comprises of humility, it comprises of respect? Yep. Can we list out a whole heap of attributes?
Remember we did the 13?
Sure.
You know, the greatest thing, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And
spiritual gifts.
The greatest one is love. Now, anyone, if they've got someone in their life, friend, parent, or whatever, and they can say, oh, I feel all of that. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You may not marry that person. It may be a member of your own gender, and you're heterosexual, but you can still say that. I think I'd define that, well, that's true love. If you can apply all those things to your relationship with your mate, with your mother, with your father, with your brother, with your sister, with your friend, and, of course, with your wife or husband.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. And when I talk with friends and so forth, no two people can sit there and say that it comprises of the same things. They might feel things differently. They might have a slightly different relationship to what you have.
Yes, of course.
So love can come in many forms.
Yes. Well, I agree. I mean, I think it certainly can. And if we look at people who, remember, people come into relationships and then leave those relationships on the basis people get married for love, all those 9 spiritual gifts. But love can be short-term, you divorce. That may not necessarily be the end of love. I've known divorced couples who got to a point where they couldn't live with each other. Now, I notice we're advertising on this station, law firms to help people because a lot of marriages are ending after long term.
Yes.
And so love changes. You initially start with you've fallen in love, which I think is different to real love because it's initial attraction. Now, that might wear off. Now, I have known in my career in the law people who have had that passion at first, it wore off, and they did part, yet never lost love for each other. And I think I've mentioned this on the show. When I was 29, I had this beautiful 68-year-old woman come in and she said she wanted a divorce. She was Lithuanian, so Nordic in her way. She was attractive physically. She was attractive in her mind and in her heart. And as I went more into it, she had met her husband. She'd been in the Lithuanian underground during the Second World War. And when the war was over, she went back to her village. Everyone was dead. And she had no members of her family left, and I think she was 19 or 20. So she decided, I'm getting out of here. And she was in a displaced persons camp in Germany, and she picked Australia because she wanted somewhere where English was spoken, somewhere where it had been settled by the British, because there was a knowledge, she said, even then in Eastern Europe and wherever, the British left stable government in places. So she then got on this boat in Bremerhaven, coming to Australia. And she couldn't speak English. She could only speak the Let language or the Lithuanian language. Anyway, she met to die for, by the way she described it, a Chris Hemsworth type handsome man. He stood 6'6". He was brown. He was young. She was 19, 20. He was about 24, 25. He was Lithuanian, and he'd been in the underground. And he was a builder. He'd finished his apprenticeship, and bang, war came. So he was on the boat coming to Australia. Naturally, because they could communicate with each other, they hit it off. They arrived in Melbourne in 1947, early 1947. They got married, and he started just working for building companies. Then after about 8 years, formed his own. They ended up having 4 children, 4 boys, and as I said, he was about 73 then. And the way she kept talking about him, I said to her, Elizabeth, that was her name, are you sure you want to end in 1979 a relationship that you had in 1947 and have had since? And she said this to me, yes, I do. His name was Jan. I will always love Jan. Couldn't get a better husband, a better father. And by this stage, the 4 boys were working in his, or there, because she was part of it, building and construction business. And I said, look, would you ask Jan, and if you're happy, I would like to speak with him, with you? And she said, of course. Well, a fortnight later, he comes in, 6'6", handsome man. And you could see the way they were looking at each other and talking. So I said, Elizabeth, why do you want a divorce? And she said, I want to fall in love, hopefully, before I die. I never fell in love because we were like two shags on a rock coming to the other end of the world, having to start a new life. I learnt very quickly the type of man he was. So I then asked Jan, are you happy, Jan? Because again, even then there was the modern Family Law Act. All that, she left for 12 months, he couldn't stop it. And I said, are you happy with this? And he said, yes, I am. And I thought, all right. And he said, I want you to know, David, I love Elizabeth. I've never lost it. I fell in love with her, and you can see, I know she's 68 now, but I assure you, as a 20-year-old, she was beautiful. Yeah, fair enough. And he said, I've always loved her. Now, if I love her, as I do, and she tells me she wants to do this in the hope of meeting someone, I'm not going to stop it. I can't stop it. Well, they got divorced, and the last I ever heard of it, and he'd said in this meeting, I will always protect her, I'll always look after her, but if she has a new husband, I won't interfere. And Elizabeth said, well, no, I would hope he wouldn't do that, but I will never lose my love for him. Now, there's an example. It didn't end up in a long-term, happy marriage till death. She professed love for him. He professed love for her, but he professed something she said she didn't have. I fell in love with her.
The bit that I enjoy in that conversation
Yes.
or that story is that they didn't end up wanting to destroy each other's lives on the way out of a relationship, and that seems to be the status quo nowadays.
Well, look, breaking up of a highly emotional relationship, which is what love is, and even if it's died, you've created a castle with children, with everything, and then the bitterness creeps in. Now, I had more of it with men who'd had affairs, and the women would say, I was a loyal wife, and he wasn't loyal. And I would always ask, not that I did a lot of family law, but I said, can you forgive him? And 95% said, no, I can't.
Yeah, it's a fairly heavy betrayal, isn't it?
Oh, I think that's a good word, Cole. It is betrayal, but I go back to Jan and Elizabeth. He was prepared to give up what he absolutely did. Said, I don't want to divorce her. But he was prepared to give that up because he had enduring and strong love for her. So it stopped him thinking about himself. And she said, look, during our marriage, he would come home every fortnight, give me all of his money, except keep some out for cigarettes and beer and lunch on the building site. She said, he never missed giving me money to pay bills, and then as we built wealth, I was in a good... She said, I love Mercedes Benzes and driving that. So you look at something like that and think, oh, it's hard to understand. So I think we come back to this. True love, you said it before, comes in many different ways. It doesn't necessarily mean an enduring relationship.
No, it doesn't. And the interesting thing is that we seem to focus on, if we look into the media or look into a lot of publications, social media seems to fixate on the negative to a point, although it's what's funny or what's popular in social media. If we focus on love, if we focus on the positive, it's funny how it puts a smile on your face.
That's another good point, isn't it? I've never met anyone, parent for child, couple in relationship, up until maybe sadly a time of divorce or separation. I've never seen or witnessed anyone say, oh, I love them dearly with a frown on their face.
That's right. That's
Never,
exactly right.
Never. So it shows that human nature changes. And I forgot, Elizabeth said, why I love Jan still, he never thought of himself. He was not a selfish man. And look what he's doing now. He's giving me up.
Yes.
And Jan said...
It's what makes you happy.
Yep. Yes, and that's what Jan said about her. But he said, how could I if I claim the love that I've just told you about, David, how could I stand there and demand that my way is
Yes.
done? Selfish. And he said, no, I won't do it.
Yes, it's interesting that the thought processes of days gone by, and you look at your grandparents and your friends' grandparents, and some of the ideologies that used to come out of their mouths as to what love was, and the changes in what it is today. It does seem to evolve through time, doesn't it? I remember asking Dulcie what's making love mean, and she said it was holding hands.
Yes, I remember.
Now, you fast forward to today, and that's a completely different equation.
Yes. So, but the one thing that seems to be there, and you go back to Dulcie and Hilton, did you ever for 1 minute doubt that in Hilton's eyes, Dulcie was the queen of heaven? In Dulcie's eyes, Hilton was the best man. And I understand that Dulcie said, as she was dying to Hilton, now you make sure you go and marry this particular person. And in the 30s and 40s, they used to play tennis, this woman and her husband, Dulcie and Hilton. But this woman's husband had passed away, and Dulcie asked him, marry her. Now, he never did, but there's an example. Dulcie saying to the man that she loved, I'm dying, don't you be alone.
It's interesting, isn't it?
No, it is.
Because some people will not understand that at all.
No, I'm sure there are listeners here who are thinking the judge and Colin are talking rubbish.
Look, I think it's in the eye of the beholder, to be honest,
Yes.
and our view may very well be very different to most people at the other end of the radio, but the common component to it is those spiritual gifts, if you ask me, and we can all sit there and say that we've experienced them in some way, shape or form throughout our life.
I agree, and I use that when I use the example of how many people have you ever heard expressing their true love with a frown or with an angry voice? So how many people during love can hate or can want to hurt or can want to... They all come when there's, you used the word before, when there's betrayal.
Yes.
When there's lack of forgiveness. Now, Paul and the spiritual gift, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. You can't exhibit those with anger.
No, you can't.
You can't. So it's a challenge that you and I can never answer it. How it has to be answered is each individual man and woman listening to this program will examine their own soul, either a relationship that has ended, a relationship that is just starting. But the one positive thing about love, it puts a smile on your face.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
It is one of those things that whether you're thinking of others or whether you're thinking of your own, it puts a smile on your face.
But it not only on your face, you see, is that it puts a smile, if such can be, in your heart. It changes your demeanour to that person, but to the world in general. And that's this, we've talked about it over the years, the light and darkness in mankind.
Indeed.
And that when it's functioning, it lifts you to heights that you're happy to go to. When it then, and here's the challenge, when it then collapses or is lost, that's when the challenge is, I will not be bitter, I will not attack, all I will do is like what Elizabeth and Jan Bartchevicus did. We will part and we will always respect each other, have good memories. Now, sadly, some relationships don't leave good memories.
No.
So what's the challenge there? Forgiveness.
Look, it's funny nowadays when we hear the terms domestic violence or we hear coercive control or controlling relationships. I do remember a story Hilton told me that way back when he was young, that there was a person who was hurting his wife, and he was ostracised at the church. He was ostracised at the pub.
Yep.
He was ostracised in his workplace.
Yes.
And society or the community said that wasn't acceptable.
Yes, and I think that, again, is a good example. My father told me the same thing. If a good mate, a word got around that he was physically assaulting his wife, it went to a certain stage where the men, and my father said he was in a group and we did this. This fella comes in, oh, g'day, and have a beer. They all turned their back on him and made it clear. And my father, being of that generation, would say he was a mongrel of a man.
Actually, that's a great term. It's one I haven't
is,
heard in a very long time.
I know.
But you're absolutely right. That's exactly how it was defined. He was a mongrel.
He was a mongrel. And no man who had a sense of his own standing as a man, no man wanted to be thought of as a mongrel. But I, again, in my legal career, more recently, probably in the last 20 years, saw men who'd badly assaulted a woman, and the attitude was, I have no shame in this, she deserved it.
Yeah.
Well, that's no one deserves it, not just a woman, because if you can control, if you can think, I'm just not going to do it, that preserves harmony. It preserves, and even the person you might be containing yourself with usually starts to build respect again.
Look, it's funny, and I shouldn't say the word funny, but it's interesting. It's one of those statistics where you wouldn't normally, when you think of domestic violence, it's a man hurting a woman, but in the Maori community, evidently, it's more commonly the other way around.
Well, not more commonly. In the law side of things, there's still the majority are men, but there are tremendously dangerous, damaging assault cases where women have violently assaulted and in some cases killed a man. Now, the people could say, well, she had a right to do that because he treated her so badly. Well, there's no right to take a life.
No.
The only place you can do it and not suffer is in wartime.
And it's a very different equation at that point, isn't it?
It is. So, look, we must challenge ourselves constantly. If I'm this, if I believe in love, if I think love is true, whether you've been divorced or not, the question is still pertinent and relevant. If I believe in love, then love doesn't do these things. Love forgives. Love doesn't seek revenge. And that, again, is the challenge of the light and darkness in human nature. And I've said this before. I have seen some of the most breathtaking, noble, courageous acts in the human condition. And then I've seen some of the most obscene, like someone who kills someone and chops their body into parts and puts it in a suitcase and throws it in the bush. Now, you look at that, or it damages a child. You think, how could anyone do that?
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right, David, we've got a couple of moments summing up.
Well, true love, I believe, does exist, and every one of us have to search our hearts and minds to find our definition of it, and then go extra miles with the right person or right group of friends to put it into place.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment, David. Look, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you, as always. Thank you for having me.
That was a nice, light, fluffy one.
Yeah.
You've been listening to 4CRB's interviews and talkback series. Support local online content and become a financial supporter today at 4CRB.com.